In the year 570 of the Common Era, in a city built on rock and commerce and faith, a child entered the world without a father. Mecca was not a gentle place. It was a crossroads of caravans carrying incense and silk, of competing tribes who settled disputes with blood, of a culture that worshipped hundreds of idols and in its darkest corners buried infant girls alive. It was also a place of pilgrimage, of ancient covenant, of a black stone set in a cube of granite that people had circled for generations, drawn by something they could not entirely name. Into this world came Muhammad ibn Abdullah, orphaned before he drew breath. His father, Abdullah, died months before his birth. His mother, Amina, died when he was 6. He came into the world unprotected. He would leave it having protected the world. His grandfather, al-Muttalib, took him in. The old man loved him as grandfathers do, fiercely, helplessly, without reserve. But 2 years later, he too was gone. The boy passed then to his uncle, Abu Talib, not wealthy, but proud and devoted. Abu Talib would protect Muhammad for the next 40 years, long past reason, long past personal interest, long past everything except love. Muhammad grew up in the margins of power. He was Quraysh, the tribe of Mecca's ruling class, but a poor cousin of it. He worked as a shepherd first, and then as a merchant. He traveled the trade routes north to Syria, learning the roads as he learned everything, by watching, by listening, by being present in a way that people noticed. They noticed something specific. The merchants of Mecca were not always paragons of honesty, but this young man, they called him al-Amin, the trustworthy, and as-Sadiq, the truthful. They gave him their gold to safeguard. They brought their disputes to him for arbitration. There is a story recorded by Ibn Ishaq of the day when Muhammad was 35 that the leaders of Mecca's tribes fell into a bitter argument over which clan would have the honor of placing the sacred black stone back into the Kaaba after renovations. War seemed imminent. Then someone suggested, let the next man through the gate decide. That man was Muhammad. He laid his cloak on the ground, placed the stone at the center, and had a representative of each clan hold a corner. They lifted it together. He placed it with his own hands. No blood was shed. Everyone was satisfied. He had not yet called himself a prophet. He had not yet claimed anything at all. He was simply the man they trusted when trust was the rarest thing in the room. She sent him to Syria with her caravans. She watched the reports come back. Prophets, yes, but more than prophets. She heard how he had conducted himself, fairly, transparently, with the kind of integrity that was apparently catching. Khadijah bint Khuwailid was approximately 40 years old. She was a widow twice over, some traditions say, and among the most respected merchants in Mecca. She had no need of a husband. She had capital, reputation, and the independence that wealth in any era can confer on a determined woman. She proposed to him anyway. He was 25. Their marriage lasted 25 years. And by every surviving account, it was a deeply loving one. He took no other wife while she lived, unusual in a culture where men of means routinely took many. She bore him 6 children, 4 daughters, 2 sons who died in infancy. She managed her wealth alongside his mission. She consoled him when he returned from the cave trembling and undone. She was, in the truest sense, the first pillar of what would become a global civilization. When Muhammad remembered her years later, long after her death, when he was surrounded by other wives in the adulation of millions, he still wept. Khadijah had believed in him, he said, when no one else did. He had been going to the cave for years. Not every man who retreats to a mountain is a prophet. Most of them are simply men who need quiet. Muhammad was troubled by what he saw in Mecca, the inequality, the idolatry, the burying of daughters, the arrogance of the rich over the poor. He went to the Cave of Hira on the mountain of light above Mecca to think, to pray to whatever God he believed was listening. Then came the night in 610 CE when something answered. Imagine the dark of that cave, the stillness. Then a presence, overwhelming, radiant, impossible. The angel Jibril, pressed against him and commanded, recite. He could not read. He said so. The command came again, and then, not from his own mind, not from memory or learning, words arrived. The first words of what would become the Quran. Recite in the name of your Lord who creates man from a clot. He ran home, not majestically, not prophetically. He ran, shaking, wrapped himself in his cloak, told his wife to cover him. It was Khadijah who steadied him. It was Khadijah who said, God would not disgrace a man like you. You help people. You keep your word. You feed the hungry. Whatever this is, you are not the wrong man for it. She took him to her elderly cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal, a Christian scholar, who listened and recognized what Muhammad described. He said, "This is the angel who visited Moses." He told Muhammad he would be disbelieved and driven out. He said, "If I am alive when that happens, I will stand by you." Waraka died shortly after. But he had given Muhammad something indispensable, the knowledge that he was not the first and would not be the last. For the first 3 years, the revelation was private, close friends, family. Then came the command to speak openly at the Kaaba itself, and Muhammad spoke. God is one. The idols are nothing. Bury no more daughters. Free the slave. Feed the poor. The Quraysh heard him, and the Quraysh were afraid. Their fear was not theological, it was economic. The Kaaba and its 360 idols were the engine of Mecca's commerce. Pilgrims came from across Arabia, spending money, paying tribute to the custodians of the sacred city. If Muhammad's God displaced the idols, the trade routes would shift, the power would shift, everything would shift, and so the persecution began. For those who had tribal protection, it meant social ruin and financial pressure. For those who had none, the slaves, the poor, the freedmen, it meant something far more immediate. Sumayya bint Kabab, a slave woman, old and frail, refused under torture to renounce her faith. Her master killed her with a spear. She became Islam's first martyr. Abu Bakr, Muhammad's closest companion, purchased Bilal's freedom and brought him home. One day, Bilal would climb to the roof of the mosque in Medina and call the faithful to prayer. The first human voice ever to do so in Islam. The man who was pressed into the earth by a stone would be the man whose voice rose highest. In 615 CE, Muhammad sent his most vulnerable followers across the Red Sea to Abyssinia, where the Christian king granted them asylum. Muhammad himself remained. He would not leave until he had to. In 619 CE, everything that had held Muhammad's world together broke at once. Abu Talib, the uncle who raised him, shielded him, refused to abandon him even when the Quraysh made withdrawal the price of survival, died. With him gone, Muhammad lost not just a guardian, but a position within the Meccan tribal architecture. He was suddenly, at 49 years old, politically exposed in a way he had not been since childhood. Then, weeks later, Khadijah died. She had been his certainty, his first, the woman who had told him on the worst night of his life that God would not disgrace a man like you. He called that year al-Huzn, the year of sorrow. And yet, in the months surrounding this grief, he described what Islamic tradition calls the Isra and Miraj, a journey by night
carried by Gabriel first to Jerusalem, then upward through the heavens. He encountered the prophets before him, Adam, Moses, Abraham, Jesus. He was shown the architecture of the cosmos. Islamic scholars have debated for centuries whether this was a physical journey or a vision. What is less disputed is its function. In the lowest year of his human experience, Muhammad was shown the widest possible view.
They left at night. By the time Mecca realized Muhammad was gone, he had disappeared into the desert, sheltering in a cave with Abu Bakr, waiting for the search parties to pass. Then onward, 200 miles north to Yathrib. The year was 622 CE. The journey is called the Hijra, the migration. And here is what makes it remarkable, not just historically, but conceptually. When Muslims count their years, they do not begin from the birth of the Prophet. They do not begin from the first revelation. They begin from this moment, from the departure, from the day a community chose to leave everything it had known in order to remain intact. Year 1 of the Islamic calendar is not a birth or a vision. It is an act of collective will. Muhammad arrived in Medina to a fractured city. He drafted what historians now call the Constitution of Medina, approximately 47 clauses establishing a civic framework for Muslims, pagan Arabs, and Jewish tribes to coexist under shared governance, mutual defense, and guaranteed religious freedom for every community. Many historians consider it one of the earliest written constitutions in human history to formally enshrine the right of each community to practice its faith freely. The years in Medina were not peaceful. Mecca would not allow the Muslim community to survive unchallenged, economically, militarily, or politically. Battles came. Badr, 624 CE, a Muslim force of roughly 300 facing a Meccan army 3 times their size and winning. Uhud, 625 CE, a costly partial defeat. The Trench, 627 CE, a coalition of 10,000 besieging Medina, turned back by a defensive ditch dug around the city's northern flank, a Persian military tactic Muhammad's allies had introduced. Each crisis deepened the community. Muhammad was not simply receiving revelation and reciting it, he was governing, he was negotiating, he was statecraft. In 628 CE, he signed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, terms that seemed humiliating to his followers. No pilgrimage that year, a 10-year pause, significant concessions. His companions were bewildered. Muhammad saw further. It was recognition. The first time Mecca acknowledged the Muslim community as a legitimate political entity. The Quraysh broke it in 2 years, and in doing so, gave Muhammad the moral justification for what came next. In December 629 CE, Muhammad led 10,000 fighters toward the city that had driven him out. He had left it in secret, alone in the dark 8 years earlier. He returned in daylight at the head of an army. The Quraysh surrendered. The conquest was largely bloodless, a fact that has struck historians of the ancient world as extraordinary given the norms of the time and the scale of the grievance. Muhammad entered the Kaaba. He ordered the idols removed, every one, and then he turned to the assembled Meccans, the people who had killed his followers, starved his clan, driven him from his home, and he asked, "What do you think I will do with you?" They said they hoped for mercy. They were, they said, a noble brother. He answered with a single word that echoes across 14 centuries. "Go, you are free." He declared amnesty. He declared equality.
He declared that no Arab had superiority over a non-Arab, no white over a black, no black over a white, except in piety and good action. Not many conquerors in history have entered their city of origin and responded to victory with forgiveness. In 632 CE, Muhammad made his only full Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. He was 62 years old. On the 9th day of the pilgrimage, on the plain of Mount Arafat, he climbed and spoke. The crowd stretched to the horizon. He abolished blood feuds that had governed Arab society for generations. He declared the lives and property of all people inviolable. He told men to treat women well, for they have rights over you as you have rights over them. He called for the rejection of usury, the forgiveness of debts, and the end of the exploitation of the weak by the powerful. And then he said, "All of you are from Adam, and Adam was made from clay. No Arab has superiority over a non-Arab, no white over a black, no black over a white, except in piety and good action."